Colin, thank you for coming to my house today. Thank you for being in my kitchen. I buy everyone a present. And do you know what? I've recently got caught up in just buying people wine and chocolate. So I thought I'd go for something a bit different because you're a bit different. So I bought some quality olive oil.
Oh,
perfect. You cook.
I cook and I don't drink alcohol, so that's perfect.
Do you not drink?
No, I stopped about 5 years ago.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I realised I was born drunk. Don't need it. I dance, I talk to girls, I do everything. And I have a much better memory now. So.
But do you not like the flavour of it? Did you?
Oh, I miss, really good Malbec or a good Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah.
I've got to say that the alcohol-free beers got a lot better without going into any brands. But
Yeah.
0.0 springs to mind. Yeah.
When I spoke to you the other day and said, do you want to come on my podcast? And you were like, yep. And you said, I'm just in Tunisia with the Still Band.
Right, I'm going to Tunisia next week. Actually,
Oh, you're going?
But we've been rehearsing with the Still Band. Yeah.
So tell us about that, because I know you do a lot with Notting Hill Carnival,
Yeah.
but you do. So you've got a lot to do with music. So tell us about the Still Band first, and we'll go through it all.
Okay, so my wife and I, we've got 4 beautiful kids. We lived in North Kensington, obviously, which is a land of carnival. I've been going to carnival all my life, memorable life, teenage life. So through the dark times, the light times, and then we ended up on Ladbroke Grove with the baby, the first. And we were standing on the step, and the whole thing would go by, and we'd just think, and people would come and visit, and we'd think, wouldn't it be amazing if we all just wore a red bandana, and just a group of us went in.
Yeah.
And then we sort of flirted with that idea, and then my daughter went off to school, and then the others arrived, and then at their primary school, we realised, which is in Notting Hill Gate, we realised that none of them were involved in the carnival. So we thought, well, let's start a band. So we started Fox Carnival Band at the school. First year was interesting because they went the old route of the sort of carnival kings and queens, and then we did a lot of the work, and our daughter ended up dressed as a penguin, and it was like that caused a bit of a ruction in the house, and we thought, right, we're going to have to be Republican carnivalists, so there'll be no kings and queens in our band, everybody's on a level. So literally we started that, and Fiona did a digital art project because she's a digital artist, where the kids all drew a mask facially on computer, which we then printed up, put it up onto Corex, and then hoisted it. So we took their art down the road, and that was the first year, and it went on for 17 years. And then our children finally left because we had 4, so we were at that school a long time. Loved it. And we realised that we were just putting on a party for one day of the year, which was taking 4 or 5 months to arrange and plan and produce. So then we realised when we moved to White City, we moved to the Wormwood Estate, which is Uxbridge Roadway, the most diverse square mile in Europe at the time.
Right.
There's QPRs there, Loftus Road, that whole square mile. And there was a band in White City called, what were they called? The name escapes me now. There we go. CSI, Still Band. And my boys joined. My wife would drop them off, and there was an adult band, so she joined, started to play, loved it. My wife's Irish, she plays the whistle and everything, so she loves music. And then the guy who was teaching her left, politics of Still Bands, and she really missed it. So she rang him and said, is there another band I should join? Because, and he sort of said, no, but why don't you start one? And with anybody else, that would be like a ridiculous thing to say. To my wife, it's like, okay. So we did, and I think we're in our 5th year.
So you're playing the steel drums?
I've learned I play tenor, yeah. I've learned in 3 years.
Can you just move your pop shield down just a tiny bit
sure.
so we can see your face? Just move it down. That's it.
Yeah.
So how's the... move it forward again. That's it, perfect.
That's it.
So how long does it take you to learn then, to play?
Well, it's a really interesting thing because I played in brass bands as a cornetist, and we've realised that ultimately, and we have an amazing teacher, Jason Constantine, who's from Trinidad. He's proper player. He's trained up the ebony. He's trained up everybody. He's well known in the steel pan world, but he works in schools in South London, and he just didn't want the drama of the politics around steel pan. Pan can be intense, so we just have a lightness of being and the policies we put in place about behaviour and where you conduct yourself within the band. So we just have this lightness in our band, which he really enjoys. So he loves it. But
Well, I'm confused. What do you mean the politics in steel band?
Well, steel pan comes from a pretty tough place. I mean, that's, you know, in
Right.
certain areas of Trinidad, it's considered a really low life thing to do because it was a real gangster thing to do because they literally pan these things out with hammers. I mean, that's how they tune them. And it was considered a really low level. The pan yard is a place
Right,
of
okay.
iniquity, and it's a bit like jazz. It's a bit like how jazz started in the blues.
Yeah.
You didn't go into those places. So we've had to... And that's not a judgment on them. It's just that's where it came from. When they say pan, I mean they do mean Dionysus. It literally is hard. You work hard, you play hard. You know, and the bacchanalia and all those terms that you used in pan in Carnival, it's all from the Dionysian tradition. So people go crazy. You know, literally. So pan is pan.
I used to live on the Carnival, and I loved it. And then when I went back after not living on it, it's not the same. To actually be in it, living in it,
exactly.
the whole area changes.
And you feel it. You're part of
you
it.
feel part of it, yeah. And you look out your window, and it's all going on, and it's just
you see
fantastic.
it build up in the day.
Yeah.
You see it come, and you see it go.
It's just
like
great.
It's really interesting you say that because it's a bit like the ocean. If you're on a boat and you just dropped into the ocean, you can get seasick and panic and blah blah blah. But if you actually set out on the whole journey, you know, you come out the coast, come out of the quayside, and out, and then you just feel it, and then you get back and you feel the whole journey. But if you just drop into the middle of the storm,
Exactly.
it can be too much. I get that.
Yeah.
So with regards to the pan, our band, we know the best thing to do for Carnival is to be in it.
Right.
And we would take children of 1, 2, when we were the children's Carnival, and I was captain dancer. I wore a mask, so nobody knew it was me.
Yeah, you were captain, weren't you?
Yeah, I was dance captain. So I danced backwards for like 7 hours and then crawled to the toilet for the next 3 days, you know, on my hands and knees. But if you get enthrall the kids, they don't see the crowd, they don't fear it, because it's a sensory thing. And I think we work with kids who've had autism in different scenarios, and in that environment they would thrive because there was no conversation.
Yeah.
It was all physical. And they would tumble and dance and be really... And then you take them into a quiet classroom and they can't function. So Carnival has a real... It's for people like me, you know, totally ADHD and nuts. Yeah.
Now, just before we started this podcast, I said to you, what is that new thing you've done on your Twitter, the new symbol? And it's you said to me it's about your where you're from, yeah?
Well, I did my DNA. I got it for Christmas. And those of you who've done it will know that symbol. So that's why I did it. And I'm impressed you picked up on it. But I'm half English, literally, like not Irish, not French. It's English. And 28% Senegalese. No, Malian, and 22% Senegalese.
Right, so you've got all the three colours. I'm just looking at it here. That represents your percentage.
Yeah, that's
of
how
what
it comes
you are.
back to you. Yeah,
Oh,
I just thought it looked really beautiful, and it was a bit of a shock because I was always led to believe, because I never knew my blood father, and I was always just led to believe I was Ghanaian. Now, obviously, it's West African, but I've always been a massive fan of Salif Keita and Mali's music and Senegalese.
Wow, has that changed your thought process about you and your life?
Yeah, my kids have all gone off researching because
Have they?
Yeah, because it was always Ghana. And then my dad, the man who brought me up, is Jamaican, so we've always had that culture. So it's like I'm a French-speaking sort of Englishman. It's brilliant. I'm looking forward to exploring it a bit more, yeah.
And so how did you get involved in falling in love with jazz music?
Now that's my dad. That's Frankie Boy and my mum. My mum's favourite track was Manhattan, Ella Fitzgerald. And then you have that scenario of Nat King Cole, Johnny Mathis. She loved Johnny Mathis. And then I got given a cornet at 7, so Louis Armstrong was the only other figure I saw, black figure, male with a trumpet. So he became an icon for me. And then, my dad gave me a love of jazz and cricket, and for which I will be forever grateful, you know. Lots of things he didn't do, but we won't go to that.
Hey, you bought your trumpet in.
I did.
I can't believe that. That's really exciting. Can you, because I've seen you play this before on a stage, and I'm not sure you played that one, did you?
Yeah, this is a new one. This is a little pocket trumpet, so I can sneak it in. But I'll just give you a little burst or something. You go.
You're the first one on the podcast to bring a musical instrument. Well done. That's great. How do you feel when you're playing?
I think we talked a little earlier about meditation, and I think it's all about breathing. So I played for life, and I carry it everywhere, and I realise that's really how I meditate. That's sort of every day I play, and it just gets rid of the residual air, and it's physical playing trumpet.
What is it about jazz music you like? You just mentioned a minute ago it's sort of rebellious, wasn't it, in a way?
Yeah, it is. Well, I love the way it's so virtuoso. They're virtuoso players, and yet they will be virtuoso in any environment. And you could take classical. I mean, back in the day, they would learn things like the Bach Brandenburg Concerto. That was your audition piece in New Orleans. Right. People don't really understand how virtuoso those guys were. They were serious musicians. I saw Green Book, the film, and you sort of get it in that. That sort of really does explore the virtuosity of the guy who can play, but he wasn't allowed to sort of play that. It was a bit like the wonderful female, the greatest. Nina Simone, exactly. Excuse me, Nina, forgive me. But she wasn't encouraged to play classical, so she started to sort of get quite fugal, use like Bach references, but they didn't like to see black players playing classical music, so they could play it, so they just sort of developed a different style.
This could be really clumsy, and excuse me if it is, but is that similar to you joining a punk band when you decided to embark on a career in music yourself?
I think what was the wonderful thing about punk for me, and what was really important and people didn't really get at the time, they're now getting it because you have Afro-punk, but it came from Channel 1, it came out of Jamaica. It was the 4-track recorder. It was the fact, Clash. It's the 2/7s Clash. So when you went to a Clash gig, they had the best sound system in the country. You heard their tracks when they played Dillinger at a Clash gig. I used to go to sound systems. I never heard anything like it.
But I was listening to the Clash the other day. There was someone put up a old bit of footage from BBC Archive. It's fantastic, and the Clash were going, "Look, we hate the fascists. We hate the NF." And we're playing reggae at our gigs, and we're standing up for reggae at our gigs, and etc., etc. So there must have been a big separation in that time between there was with the black and white youths, and punk was predominantly a white movement, wasn't it?
It was indeed. It was. But you had that, like I say, with the reggae element. I mean, and let's be straight. I mean, Joe Strummer was a public school boy. And but like I say to anybody, you can't have where you're born, it's what you do that matters. And the fact about Joe, he knew, and I met Joe and I was at his funeral and stuff, he knew what he was up against. You know what I mean? It was like, that's not preclusive. I mean, he'd go into that school and I'd be quite naive about people, and he'd go, nah, don't trust them. You know what I mean? I know, I went to school with them, don't trust them. Certain people, we just don't fall for it.
But did you have a problem being a black guy in a white band and a punk band? Were I got
a lot of grief from black boys for it.
Really?
They used to get really angry as like punks because it was a whole soul boy thing. So I had this dual life because I would go to Coastal All-Nighters. I'd play a gig on the drums for the punk band, change me clothes, go wash, and then get in the car in the Capri 1970, 71. And off we go with Al Jarreau. Easy, let your love ring out. I had 2 lives. It was fantastic. And I saw Young Soul Rebels. And I have issues with the film, but it wasn't far off the mark. But that actually brings us to Two-Tone, because that was our music.
My favourite.
That was the British music. Was the thing when we connected. And that's really important. People really understand that.
I ended up knowing John Bradbury really well. He's died now, sadly. And the amount of conversations, he was such a lovely person to me when I was going through my sort of depression. He'd go, come out and have a coffee with me, and we just sit, and I couldn't believe I was sitting talking to someone from the Specials, and he was such a lovely guy. But we used to talk about it. You don't realise how important that band was, black and white people on the stage, mixing of the music, and I think people seem to forget that there was very few bands like that, and still are very few bands.
Well, you have to. There's 2 things they did for me. Jerry Dammers freed Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
He wrote the song, and that created it's a spiritual thing. When everybody sings something, you can't deny what that song was.
Do you think it is that powerful?
Oh, mate.
Do you?
I believe when a world believes enough, and starts calling to the universe, I don't believe you can ignore it.
Right.
Secondly, the most important thing he did, well, they're both very important. Ska was a music of skinheads. I was around those boys, and they were going right. And he took all these right wingers and he turned them left, and they didn't even know it happened.
Yeah.
They were so beautiful. The specials, so important, because they literally, you know, you've done too much too young. You married a kid when you could be having fun with me. I mean, I had mates who had kids at 16, 17, and like that song, we all started to think a bit about that, and it was, you know what I mean? And it was, you go to those gigs even now. I went and saw them a few years ago at Brixton, not about 3-4 years ago. And I looked at the crowd and I thought, you know, I'm no Chelsea fan, but I got to be honest, they were all in there, and it was like, yeah, good, because that's what it needs. That's what music can do. I think music liberates people, and
music and sport.
Music and sport.
Sport can do the same thing.
Question.
Yeah, well, and it has done, I think, with football over the years.
Oh, it's extraordinary.
You know,
I mean, and I love them both.
Yeah.
I mean, I love football so much I hate it sometimes.
Yeah,
it never ceases to.
What do you think? All right, I'm gonna go on a bit of a tangent here, but it just interests me. What do you think then about the cultural appropriation stuff which is happening at the moment? Because I was going to interview Sting and Shaggy, who came on my show, Sunday Brunch, and I didn't go down this line because I didn't want to, but Sting had been interviewed by a few people, and they'd said, Sting, you've just stolen your music, reggae. And Sting had to sort of say, hold on, that's what I grew up with in Newcastle. The records came over and I listened to reggae. And he's trying to justify the Police, which is a huge band, obviously. And he was doing the same, obviously doing some sort of reggae style stuff with Shaggy. If you look at The Clash, they were doing reggae. It was fantastic, but the reggae... People will label it now and say that's cultural appropriation.
Totally disagree, because I mean, I actually don't know who the Police's influences are. I don't know. I don't remember an interview where he would say, oh, we were really in love with this band or that band.
Yeah.
Whereas The Clash, they put it in their songs. You know, Dylan Joe, Leroy Smart, Delroy Wilson, he's a smooth operator. Cultural appropriation to me is just literally not naming your sources as if it's your music. You know, that's my thing. It doesn't matter what you do. You say, I'm passionately in love with this because of this. So you go, and everybody can go and research, and you big them up. You take the source, the foundation stone, and you put them in their rightful place and say, I am a disciple of that. And it's sort of not, but you don't sort of stand up and say, I am the Messiah.
Yeah, okay.
That's all it is to me.
So it's a thin line, isn't there, between cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation,
of course,
I suppose.
But you name your sources.
And I suppose this is also happening in the world of acting at the moment. Straight people aren't allowed to play gay people, or they are.
Well, I've got an argument whenever that happens to me. I just say, I don't know if I'm straight or gay. I just maybe haven't met the right guy yet. So that's my argument. You're sort of, that's a bit, I'm not dead yet, darling. You know.
But there must be a case where Americans soon start going, well, these Brits coming over here. We're dominating over in America, aren't we? We're doing well over there.
Yeah, we're doing all right. But then we've had Cary Grant and sort of, Jason. We've had many, many great actors. Lawton. It's been going on for a long time. I mean, we've got a great tradition of acting here, and I think I see the new crop of films, and they're fantastic actors coming out of the US now, and it's a global thing, really, storytelling. I sort of don't understand the argument, and they're learning their English accent. And in fact, I watched a man do Othello at the Globe recently, and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, it's fine.
Acting's acting, isn't it? It's taking on another character.
It's like music, really, isn't it? It's like saying you can't play blues or something. I think there's an argument.
I was watching. I was reading an article the other day about it, and there was an American person. I can't remember who it was. God, my memory's so bad. Both of us, Colin. Our memories are terrible this morning. But saying that the British actors are just so well trained. That's why there's such a dominance coming over, because British actors really go through the whole training regime. Really are. When they arrive for an audition, they really know their stuff. Is this true?
I think for me personally, I mean, I'm not trained, so they're completely undoes that argument. Everybody thinks I'm the people assume I'm the sort of, they always think I'm a chap, you know. So I've lived here. But actually, you know, I'm born in Bethnal Green in Mother's Hospital, never knew my dad, 2 2 kids from different dads at the age. Mum's 19, ended up in Luton, council estate, Tin Town. Yeah, I got expelled at 70. I mean, I am that boy, but I've just learned to work on my instrument, and music and singing helps. But I like people, and the key is to engage with people and watch people and learn, because that's your library. You know, you can go and study, and I get it, you study. But the thing is, do theatre, because that gets you over the fear. That's the key, as what I was going to say, actually. You know, when you go up for a theatre audition, you learn your lines. That's and that's not a difference. But I've done a few American shows now, and they're like amazed at how we know all our lines. And you're like, what do you mean? And they say, well, sometimes, you know, we don't, you know, we just get up there, man, you know, we just try things out. And you're like, really? Okay. Yeah, you know, we get there, and you say, well, how do you get the time? I mean, I've just been doing Krypton, and you know, we get big wad of pages every day. You've got to get through them. And the thing about it is, with respect to the writers, they've worked hard to write this stuff. Yeah. And taken time, and there's a rhythm to the lyric, you know, to the lyric, I call it. And occasionally you can adapt it a bit, but they've really crafted it. They've worked hard. So the idea of not actually reading it and then coming and going, no, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I mean, I think it's just, I suggest you catch yourself on, you know, because it's like, we haven't got time. You know, the game's fast now.
How'd you get from your love of music then to acting? You left Luton, ended up in a squat, didn't you?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
How did you get from a squat, from a punk band playing jazz on the trumpet, into acting?
That's a very good question. Right, so got into issues in Luton. My old mate got me, said, come and join our band, the Anarchist Formation Dance Team. I remember telling you that was the name of the band. John Peel said the greatest name of a band ever. Music was shite. But we had the greatest name. Then we came to Rutland Park Mansions. I worked on the buildings for over that summer, and then we all ended up in Rutland Park Mansions in Willesden Green in the squat. And then there was this Irish theatre group that came along, and there was a young lady in it who was rather attractive and interesting. So I sort of thought, right, I'm sure I can help in some way. And they were doing Finnegan's Wake, and it was like, wow, sounds interesting. What's that? And they said, you should read it. And I sort of got through 2 pages and went, wow, Joyce, at high end. But she did a thing called drama therapy. So I sort of found out what that was, and that was literally, there was a community task force based out of East End, and they would go into psychiatric hospitals, children's homes, and homes for mentally handicapped, and do drama therapy, so storytelling and games and stuff, and get kids to, and people who, beyond authoritarianism, to open up. So we did, and that was 16 hours a week, so I did training for 3 months, and basically we create a safe environment so anybody can say anything and do anything. And because I was a 6'4" black guy, I was really good with boys. So boys between the ages of about 8 and 14 who were sort of a bit rough and tumble, and they want to wrestle. They don't want to wrestle. They want to cuddle, man. They just, for them, pretty much all their contact was violent. So their idea of contact was, and you just hold them, and then eventually they relax, and you go, cool, and then you move on. So then you do trust games. Then you get into a storytelling scenario, and like we say, today we're going to be a judge, police, we're in a courtroom. And what do you want to be? I want to be a copper. I said, okay, I'll be a copper with you. And you go, all right. And then we're going to arrest that guy. Now, they go over and they start beating him. And you're like, all right, I'll tell you what, John, I don't think that's a good idea, because if you hit him, he's going to get off. So let's make, and so you, all right, so you contain it. So our job was to contain these guys. And then at the end of the session, you had the trust games and out. But ultimately, the best story I tell is often that little boy, John, who I went in one day and the worker said he's been doing gear, he's been on drugs, and I sort of said, well, you know, we don't get involved, you know, we're doing this. And he said, but you know, talk to him. And I said, well, I wouldn't know what to say. He said, well, you know, see. So we were sitting down, and he was sitting there gouching out and not well. And I said to him, so John, I hear you've been doing gear. And you just saw him flinch a bit. And he said, no, hey, mate, I'm not here to judge you. But I had a mate who did that. And he looked at me and I said, yeah. And I miss him, and walks off. And that's drama therapy. You have to enter the fantasy and understand it, but not judge it. Allow the person to come to their own conclusion. And that was fun to do, and I did that for a year. And at the end of that year, actually, my mum passed tragically. So luckily I was in that environment to be around those people, because that really was helpful. But I've taken that into acting, so I create a trust environment. So when you work with me, I hope, but people realise that, you know, there's no game. I really work within the team, and I will use football I was a sweeper, so I work with that in mind as well. You know, I can't do it. You can't do it on your own. You need. Do
you know what? So much to pick up on there, but just whilst you're there, I was speaking to an actor not so long ago, and she said some of the great actors, they're great for you to watch, but a nightmare to work with because they steal scenes.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that this happens.
Yeah.
That suddenly someone's going, you know, because you've only got limited time in a TV show or something, and then someone's doing these ridiculously long pauses, and you're standing there going, what am I supposed to be doing while they're doing all the, you know, all these thought processes, which I didn't realise actors had to go through because you're working with somebody else. I obviously know about co-presenting with the presenter. You look after each other when you get out there.
Yeah.
And that must be the same when you're going into a scene. So you get a sort of one of these actors who thinks I'm making a name for himself and then tries to steal the scene. Everybody else is looking around going, oh my God, Jesus Christ.
And the word gets out now. I mean, we're in a really interesting time because there's a lot of good actors out there, and the young especially. I mean, you know, you see the success of John Boyega, you know, you see Michael Cole, you know, the list goes on. And the young generation really, it's like my children's age, your children's age. They know they have to work hard. Mm-hmm. They know that. We sort of, not piss about, but we had a bit of time to sort of, you know, come and go and sort of, I'll try a bit of that. I don't know. Commit. Not commit. This lot want to be millionaires, but, you know, well, not even millionaires. They just want control early. So they've done what we said, because we all said to them, get a camera, go and try something. I'm a bit worried about the guys I knew worked as a kid where I say, if you really want to be a criminal, go into the city. I didn't realise they were listening. You know what I mean? Because that clearly has gone down big time. You know what I mean? Because I've met a few of those boys and I'm like, oh, hello. Yeah. And they're like, all right. But they have. And there's lots of platforms to work on. There's lots of like channels to sell your product to. So now kids are making stuff. And the key is, there's a wonderful quote. I think it was Maya Angelou. She said, people won't remember what you've done, but you will remember how you made them feel.
That's brilliant.
So you're in a scenario, if I've got a rule in life, if you're going to be a dick, you better be brilliant. Your craft, I mean brilliant. Yeah. Not just good, because there's a lot of good and excellent, but brilliant, because we ain't waiting anymore. Yeah. We're not playing because we don't have to. Yeah. And when I'm the big boy on the scene, I'm generous and kind, and we don't creep the girls and shit. So don't even think about that, mate, because if you do that on my set, we're going to have a problem. So we can dictate, we can control it, you know.
So the other thing that I was wanted to pick up on as well is I always talk to you about this, but you sort of changed my parenting.
We talked about that. The kitchen, I love it.
Because you did say once, if you're ever going to talk to because you've done this work with children, what do you call them? Dysfunctional? No, what would you call them?
Just challenged. Really.
Challenged children.
Yeah, kids. Yeah.
You always said to me, when you talk to your children, don't talk to them face on. Always go to the side of them. Yeah. And I've just used that forever, and it works, especially walking. Yeah. Take them on a walk. You told me washing up, so I always try and do that. Yeah, anything like that. Yeah. Never talk to them straight on.
It's not a natural thing. But the Romans used to say, they didn't used to say we need to talk. They used to say we need to walk. So the Romans would go on walks. That literally is how.
So did the mafia. So
there's the Italian. There's the Italian connection there. I can see.
But the other thing you did, and I've got to give you credit for this, is you made me think a lot about. I was going through some. I don't know how aware you are, but I went through a lot of bad times mentally. And one of the things that you were talking about helping children and stuff, and it always occurred to me that would be a good thing to do. And I'd heard so many people talking about this sort of stuff that if you go and help someone, it actually helps you. Yep. So in a very selfish way, really, I decided to volunteer for a kids company.
Yeah, brilliant.
And so I used to go in once a week, and I used to just play football or table tennis with the kids there. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was such good. If anyone is going through hard times, to dedicate some of your time. I'm being bit facetious there by saying it's selfish, but it works both
No,
ways.
it works both ways.
And it does help you out a lot.
And they're healing. I mean, that's why I get upset about children being excluded or left, because they're a healing force. And unless we bring them back into our society and put them central again, I don't see. We have to do that to heal our society. You can't. They're just pure. Kids are pure.
But what the kids wanted was attention.
Of course.
They just wanted time. It's time. They just want. And I used to see them at the beginning, and they go, "Are we playing table tennis today?" And they go, "Yeah." I'd say, "Yeah." And they go, "I'm going to beat you today." I was like, "No, you're not." And that's all they wanted.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Right." And these kids were great.
Yeah,
and then we play football, and they go, "Can I be in your team?" And I go, "Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
Sometimes you play against me." And it's like it was just really good fun,
Yeah.
and I got so much out of it. And you just see their eyes brighten up. It's a good thing. So thank you for that.
No, not at all. I
It's
think
one of the things that.
Well, mate, I mean, I think I see there's I mean, I've been through things myself, so I can sort of see, friends, you know what I mean? And there's a really, really good quote, which is sometimes you have to break down to break through, and it's true. I often feel there's a lot of people who get to a certain age and they've never, ever actually had to face that walk across the belly of the beast or whatever, you know, want to call it. But you're going to have to do it at some point.
Well, I've gone from saying suffering from depression to I had depression, because I think depression is a key to your life going, it's wrong. Whatever you're doing is wrong, change it.
Yeah.
And that's what I try and do now. So how did you get into acting then, from doing that sort of stuff? How did you end up
So from the drama therapy to the scenario whereby I was with the girl and I did the drama therapy and then my mum died, and I think I've told, but my mum took her own life under the influence of prescribed drugs. So she went into a depression after an amazing holiday in Jamaica. She went skinny dipping. So I know she got there because my mum was quite a big girl, or felt she was a big girl. When I look around today, she wasn't big. But at that time, and they prescribed her bombers for a long time, and that blew her mind. She ended up speed, diet pills. But I may have come across them at a certain point in my time, and she was on for 3 years, and I can tell you 2 nights is bad enough. So she didn't sleep for a long time, and that affected her mentally. And and afterwards, when she was clear of all that, it created. She would go back into this place, and So anyway, she died. I sort of took a dip a bit, and then I had to make a choice. Really, I found myself in this scenario with what I was going to do. And there was a play, and it's that Love of Jazz again, and there was a play on called The Great White Hope by Howard Sackler, which was about Jack Johnson, who was the first black heavyweight champion of the world. And Miles Davis had done an album. And I'm walking down Kilburn Eye Road on my birthday, lost my girl. I thought I was the Lothario, bloody got caught, So it was like nothing. That was on that. And there it was, and I realised I had never busked in London. So I thought, right, I'm going to do it. And I pulled me out, and I was really nervous. And that with the mute, and I went up the corridor to the Tricycle Theatre, which was an old Foresters Hall, had an amazing acoustic and a doorway in the half. So I stood in the doorway and played. And John Matshikiza and Terry Mortimer, 2 actors in the show, came out, listened, and gave me a ticket. He said, come in and see it. I went to see it and was like blown away. And then the front of house manager said, yeah, come back anytime, And I literally started to go to every night. I went to every night of that, and then all the shows, so all the Brendan Behan plays. James Baldwin came over for Amen Corner. I met him, and he transferred me as a busker to the West End with them when I went, and I spent the first night in the Royal Box. They put me in the Royal Box, and all the cast turned and bowed to me at the curtain call, which was quite extraordinary.
What, you were playing in the...
I played outside,
and
then went into the theatre afterwards, and they just stuck me in the box to watch, And it was, many, many great... And James Baldwin died not long after, so I spent time with him. Got to meet James and talk to him. And he was a fantastically powerful and intelligent man. And I just found my home in the theatre. And they were just intelligent, interesting people who were very, very open. But they had an issue in that theatre at the time, which was they were losing handbags. There was somebody coming in and stealing handbags. And I didn't know that. And then when they told me, I was busking, and I spotted him immediately. He was a junkie. I just spotted him immediately who it was, and let's just say we eradicated that problem, which they were very grateful for. Yeah, it was just mad because I'm a street kid, so it's like you should have told me. I'm like, well, yeah, there he is. It's him, isn't it? They were like, is it? But and from there they wrote a part for me in a play. Great White. They wrote the part for me in a play. We started to do the rehearsals, and then when it was Pauline Black, talked from Selector.
Selector,
She was
yeah.
to play Billie Holiday, and then the theatre burnt down. So for 2 years they had to rebuild it. But when it reopened, we were the first show in. And the casting director from Prime Suspect saw me in it and cast me in my first TV show about 3 years later.
So you'd had to wait 2 years before you got back on the
Yeah,
stage.
but I met my wife, Fiona, and we'd met at the theatre just before then, and things started to sort out. Yeah,
Did you find acting easy?
easy. I wasn't frightened on stage because of music, because of Salvation Army, because of playing, performing. I was a soloist singer, so I sang at the Albert Hall and sang at big places. So I got used to stage. So it's great. I would say to anybody with kids, for example, if they're playing an instrument, get them to play as much. Have sessions in the house where they play out. Don't just have them in a room practicing.
Right, okay.
Or practicing for exams.
Yeah.
Because you play differently for a gig. You know what I mean? When you know you're going to play a gig on Sunday, you go, right, I better put the practice in. I better put the work in. If you're practicing for exam, you're like, oh, yeah, you don't play it the same. You play at 75. You want to play 100 B in a session. That's why Irish musicians are good. You know, you just play. So no, theatre, it was scary. I did lose my lines a couple of times. That's scary, where you think you're going to die. Yeah. Bullshit, shut up. It was a good line.
What?
This is a bullshit, shut up.
You still remember it?
Oh, yeah,
Never
those
gonna
things
forget
register on
that.
your brain forever, mate. Trust me.
I tried acting. You know, I thought I had TV presenter. I'd do a bit of acting. God, it's hard. I mean, I'm just not a natural, and I didn't enjoy it either. And that's the other thing, because people who love acting really enjoy it. I assume you enjoy it.
Well, it's really interesting because you used the word that I'm really one of my not pet hates, but it's one of the new things I learned. There's a book by a woman called Carol Dweck called Mindsets, and it talks about the natural. The natural is the last thing you must ever call anyone because it stops them developing. If you have a child who's really good at something, you congratulate them on how good they are, and then when they fail, you say, not a problem, just work harder. Mm-hmm. But like me, and a lot of boys like me, we were called naturals, and we started to fade because we were expected to, it was easy for us.
Right.
So we were psychologically taught it was easy. Oh, it's easy. There's no such, you work hard.
Yeah.
And it's taken that whole generation, I think, of footballers, musicians, with all of us, of just because you become dishonest. Because when you don't get success, you think, oh, it must be something I'm doing wrong. But actually, no, you just work harder.
I've read that. I've read that in a few books about not telling your kids they've done well, but tell them they've tried hard. Yeah. And I say that to my daughter, who's not brilliant at swimming, if I'm honest with my youngest daughter. But I always say, you're trying really hard, well done. And she gets out every day and goes, did I try hard, Daddy? And I'm like, yeah, you tried really hard.
And just be the best you can be.
Yeah.
That's it, man.
But it works.
And it's
weird.
Your personal best. You just work for your personal best. And if you're really an excellent athlete, your personal best just becomes better than everybody else's, but that doesn't stop you being an athlete or playing.
David Goggins, who I'm a bit obsessed with. Have you heard of David Goggins?
I have heard of him,
He's sort of like an ultra athlete. He always says there's only one person you're in competition with, and it's yourself.
Of course it is.
And it's just, and he goes at the end of the because you'll lose and you'll win, but you're only in competition with yourself. And that's really stuck with me. That
a giggle then.
Yeah.
You don't take it as personally. You know? And I see Usain Bolt, you know. And Usain Bolt is brilliant because, I mean, I'm 6'4", and I worked this out as a kid. If I'd have known, all I have to do is run like a 5'10" guy with my legs. You know what I mean? That's it. I just eat the track.
Yeah.
So I'm just scaled up bigger. So it's a bit, but have fun doing it. You see him talk to the guys around.
It's tough not to compare yourself, though, isn't it?
Well, it is.
Were you any good at football?
Oh, I was a little schoolboy, yeah. Left-footed sweeper, nothing. Nobody got past me, mate. No.
So what happened? Why didn't you make it?
I started smoking at about 14, hanging out with the bad boys.
Really?
Yeah.
What was it like then, growing up in Luton? You're very political, aren't you? I was just looking through some of your tweets, and you do like talking a bit about issues, which is good. You've always been this way, haven't you? So,
yeah.
So what? But you, to use your expression, you walked the walk. You were a guy growing up in Luton, and getting in with the bad guys. So
yeah. Well, I had a mixture of guys, but I mean, at the time when I was at school, it was I was like the first black family on the estate, so I had to run with certain boys, and that's how I become good at football. Because at the age of 4, 5, you're playing with 10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds who kick you to kingdom come.
Yeah.
And they'd put you in goal, and you'd dive at their feet. So Gordon Banks was my hero for a period of time, and then people know he was shite, but no, he wasn't. He was good, but you had to be brave to play. So I was brave, and I'm fearless, really, in terms of that. And then this sense of humour comes, and you work out, I remember once I heard this kid shout out, "Hey, Mum!" And she went, "What?" And I just shouted, "It's the Dustbin Men." And there was a TV show at the time. And I just remember the whole group of boys laughed. And I thought, okay, this is cool. I'll try this a bit more. But yeah, I should get kicked from pillar to post. It was fun. And you get strong. And I think one of the greatest things that happened in our town was that when I started comprehensive school, that year they started playing rugby union in all the state schools. And that meant, I've thought about this a bit since then, but that meant by the time I got to 16, 17, 18, all the hard boys of all the schools, we all knew each other. Mm-hmm. So there was never any beef because we all knew each other from the rugby. And we had a few beefs on the pitch, but we sort of knew who was the real deal and who wasn't, because when you play rugby, it's pretty straightforward. You're going to, you can see those who cop out. And then you see the real players, and you're like, wow.
That's what Drew Povey, who, do you know Drew Povey? He's a fantastic guy. He was the headmaster of the worst school in Britain. We had him on this podcast. And Educating Manchester was the show. And he invited all the hard lads. He said, meet me all here at lunchtime, when he first took over the school. So all the hard lads, sort of, the word went around, all turned up, thought, is the teacher going to have a fight with us? And he went, I'm going to start a rugby team.
Brilliant.
We're going to be the fairest, but we're also going to be the hardest.
Yeah.
And he goes, the kids just loved it because we weren't winning sometimes, won sometimes, but they got a chance to just prove how hard they were on a sporting pitch.
Yeah. Well, you're allowed to, because everybody's, don't hit him. It's like, you got
rugby's one of those.
We are those boys. We and girls. I mean, I know some of the rugby girls, Miranda Taylor and all that mob, and they're like, when I was down in New Zealand, I went to watch them play. It was like, wonderful, really, and perfect rugby, really technically perfect.
See, I know nothing about rugby, but when I watch New Zealand play, I think, that's a different way they're playing that sport to the way we often see it.
Well, I mean, what I like about the New Zealand the All Blacks ethos was that they want to play their best team and beat them.
Yeah.
Right, so they don't want to nobble their opponents. They want you to be your best you can be, and then we beat you.
I know nothing about rugby, so you can help me. Do you know a lot about rugby?
A little bit.
Right, so you can help me here. Why did New Zealand seem to keep the ball alive the most? And that's why I like it, is they seem to get the ball and whatever, when they're being tackled, rather than go down and, I don't know what the expression is, but they go down and they put it down and wait for their team to...
Yeah.
They're one-handed trying to put it off.
Well, the French are very...
Keep the ball alive. And I'm like, wow, that's... Yeah. When you see that, you think, these guys are... unbelievable skills and athleticism. When you got a guy who just rolls over on it, I'm like, oh God, get up, man.
Right. So if you imagine then, so from a point of view of a tactic, the job is to sort of draw the players in. So the rucking draws other players in, and when you draw the players in, that leaves less players in the line in the defence. So rucking is a structural.
Yeah, I know that, but it's no fun for me to watch.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I watched what was the World Cup where it was New Zealand versus Australia? Was that the last one? The last World Cup?
Yeah, maybe,
probably. Anyway, it was a different
game.
Yeah,
they play different.
Wow, both of them were just
and the French play that,
keeping the ball alive.
But yeah, we left rugby.
But you tweeted the other day about police numbers, cartons, stuff like that. I mean, it's you seem political. What's going on at the moment? What do you think's happening out there?
What do I think's happening out there? Well, I think there's been a lot of bad choices, I think, because it is a choice. I mean, it's a choice to put people through sort of austerity and things like that. And I think we're just at the end of 10 years of austerity. And what did you think was going to happen? I think, when you shut 500 libraries, there's no child provision. I mean, you spoke of the kids' company, that's gone. Mm-hmm. And I don't think anything's replaced it. I've worked with a couple of people down in Peckham, and there's a couple of clubs that they're trying to work on. But if kids have got nowhere to go, nowhere to play, I worry. And I also feel very strongly that the police numbers cut is not for arrest, it's protection. I feel the kids aren't getting protected. I just don't think there's anybody out there looking after them. So they feel afraid, and I've seen it in my own family. I mean, Harry Mapunzo died behind my house. He got stabbed up in bush behind my house. And my son heard it, and my other son saw it on the way home from school. And then his mate got stabbed 6 weeks later, and and he got excluded from school for fuck all, to be honest. And of course, so he's just hanging out with these boys. And there's another issue. The Ofsted, I was a chair of governors of a school, and the focus on results became so great that if you ain't looking like you're going to get them, you're going to be out. So that's sixth form. You've got 17-year-olds after the first year of sixth form. If they're not up, they're out. So they can't even go on to do their A-levels. Yeah. So you're breaking kids' hearts.
The making school into a competition winds me up so much. The one place that we've all got, you just say kids company's got and all that. The school's there. Make sure that the school is always open and it's there. Get the purpose of it right first, which is to protect the children, offer them a choice.
Give them tools to learn.
Give them tools to learn, to go
to survive out here. And it's changing. I mean, let's be honest. The environment's changing. Like I say, in 30 years' time, there won't be the jobs there are today. So what we need to do, surely, is teach kids how to adapt.
I'm ill-informed about this, but one of my friends who lives in Ladbroke Grove, she told me that her son, who doesn't run with any of the gangs, but there are gangs out there, said that a lot of the kids are carrying the acid, but not to attack people, but to defend themselves, because it's a better weapon than trying to go toe-to-toe with someone with a knife. So you can squirt and run. And she said that's where I think might have calmed down a bit now. They've changed the laws. But when the laws were in place, she goes, so a lot of people saying all these kids are carrying it to attack people. They were trying to defend themselves, as you're saying. They're terrified going.
Well, you've got that scenario as well with the cage cricket stuff that we've been doing. We work in prisons and we work in young offenders institutes, and some of them are banged up for 23 hours a day, so they're not actually getting any. They're not getting any development. They're coming back out. So I see the landing. I know this for a fact down in South London. They were getting ready for a gang that was coming out of prison. So the whole community was getting ready for this gang that had been in prison for like 8 years, were coming out. So they had to get ready for these guys to come back onto their streets. So we can all jump in our cars and drive around, but what I see out there is landings. People don't see streets. I see landings. These kids are out on the street. And if we're not on that street, our kids are facing the landing. They're on the landing, and we're all jumping in Ubers and and we're not on the street. We used to walk everywhere, and we don't. So that means our kids are. And so for any middle class is the wrong word, but anybody who thinks it's not going to affect them, grow some, because the world is everywhere.
I had Neil Woods on this podcast last week, ex-undercover copper, drug squad. He's trying to get the legalisation of drugs, saying this is just ridiculous how drugs is bringing, and the streets are getting more and more dangerous.
Well, my daughter did social policy at LSE, and she wanted to legalise drugs because she felt the children of drug addicts were so vulnerable, and they cannot go looking for help because they don't want to criminalise their parents.
Oh, yeah.
But they're in an environment, if you think about it, who comes to their house to school, to hang, to think? And when their mum's gouching out, well, these children are so vulnerable.
Yeah.
So that's her argument. What about the kids living with drug addicts who can't ask for help?
Have you ever thought about getting into politics?
I'm sort of involved. I'm going straight off in a minute to Princess Trust event, and I sort of do. I was with Inquest. I'm going to be a patron of them the other day. I'm in Northern Ireland. I've set up a little group for sort of mixed race kids and kids of colour in Northern Ireland because that's growing, and I want to be able to just be an interface. And as an actor, because there's a question you were asked about, what's it like to be famous? Being an actor gives me a neutral position. I think politics means you've got to pick a team, and I'm a bit cross-bench, and I sort of see, I'm an issue-based politics. I like issues. So I would say to people out there, if we have a plague of rats, whether you live in a castle or in a hovel, it affects us all. So we sort it out, or are you going to say, we're going to do it this way, or we're doing it that way? I don't give a shit. Let's just do it, shall we? So I get a bit cross at people trying to own issues. And also, when I was the chair of governors and I had to make a speech and get political, it exhausted me because I really believe it. So it's not a game. So that's exhausting. I don't think I could do it. I can act it, and that could work. I just played a teacher in a Silent Witness, head teacher in a school with knife crime, and it was really, really good at 2 episodes. And it got into all the homes of all the male readers and all that stuff. And I think it made them think differently. So I actually think I'm in the right environment to a bit like this. I think, it's so funny. There's the mic, as Pele was to say something. The first thing Pele said when they put the mic in his mouth when he was 19 was, we need more schools. We need to house the poor.
Oh, that's cool.
He's my God. That's, if the mic's in your mouth, say something. Yeah. I found it really difficult because it wasn't Darjeeling. It was Kenyan Assam, and it was just served up in the wrong cup. It has to be a white cup. I mean, no, I'm not even joking.
Do you know when I went to Zambia once, and I met these group of people who were going around. They were a group of actors who were going around performing plays to try and teach God, this sounds so bizarre. I'm going to say this,
correct. Yeah.
but how to basically stop the fathers from spending all the money on alcohol.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was one scene that I remember which was great, which one of the actors got the baby and started feeding the baby, and everyone started. It was the laugh bit, the comedy bit, because the father was really involved with the baby, feeding the baby and dressing and changing the baby's nappies. And clearly, at the time where I was, it was a woman's thing to do. So they were all laughing and all that sort of stuff. But they were trying to, but they were doing it through art, through acting. And I thought, what a great way of doing that.
Well, you took us back to the drama therapy now. So the oldest tribe, and this is what we studied. So we studied Lawrence van der Post, who studied the sort of the Sand people, or the Kalahari Bushmen, or the Hottentots, or whatever they were called, but the Sand people. And the Sand people live in one of the most hostile environments, i.e. the Kalahari Desert, and they have to teach their children how to survive. Mm-hmm. And if you ever see a film of how they teach their children how to survive, you see grown men like playing antelope.
Oh, right.
And then you have the guy and perfectly playing antelope. So the ear pricks, that's really important, because when that ear pricks, you stand absolutely still, and you better not have farted. Or if you are, you've got to be downwind, because the antelope will smell it, and then they're off. And so... And the kids are laughing. Then there's the plant, you're thirsty, you go, where's that? That plant. Yeah. Oh, that stings. And the kids laugh, and you go, right, so you have to lift it. And they live in the most hostile environment, and they teach their children through story, but the kids are continually laughing. We live in one of the safest environments in the world, and yet our children are always in a state of fear.
Yeah.
We didn't learn anything from the oldest tribe on the planet. Literally live in the most hostile environment, and they realised the power is laughter. So storytelling is the way to do it. I didn't choose to be an actor; it chose me. But the more I do it, the more I realise, and even people I know really close to me who work in policy believe it. You can do it with probably in film and documentary and stories. I was watching the Michael Jackson thing the other night, and wow.
I haven't watched it.
But it taught me a lot about how you can be manipulated. It's really, really important, regardless of the story, but you just watch the Machiavellian. It's wonderful to watch. And I'm holding no judgment. I am holding judgment. Terrible, sad, really sad. But he was a god on earth. It's very easy to be whatever you want to be when you're a god on earth, but you realise you have to detach people.
It's the problem with power, isn't it?
Yeah,
power doesn't. Humans aren't good with power.
No.
It's a tough thing to deal with.
Yeah, my wife told me that. Yeah. Not that I'm powerful. She's the power. Yeah.
You nearly very. But how close were you to being talking about doing? I don't know, influencing things. How close were you to being the first black Bond? Because there's a lot of talk about that.
There was a lot of talk about it. I mean, I think I told you before, I screen tested the girls for 3 movies. So I played him below the line. And so I've been James Bond, maybe not in front of everybody else, but, when you've got Monica Bellucci licking your face and Sophie Marceau sitting on your lap.
Nightmare.
Saffron Burrows, sort of. And what a beautiful woman. Saffron, dancing with Saffron was extraordinary. I played Charles Robinson. If anything, if we could start, I'd love to come back as M at some point, because I think that's my natural career trajectory. So I think Robinson goes off, and maybe about 15 years when I'm sort of catch up with my age a bit. When I look as old as Ralph Fiennes, then I can play M.
I'd love you to have done it, though. I'd love you to have done it. When Jodie Whittaker became the female Doctor Who.
Yeah, fantastic.
But it's brilliant for 2 reasons. One, I watched it, and she was brilliant.
She's great, yeah.
And just the outrage, the outpouring of, I can't believe it's a woman. It's like, I just thought that was just brilliant.
Yeah.
I like the fact that it upsets so many people.
I agree with you. I think it's really important that we keep reinventing. And I really do want to say to people, it's fiction, folks. Relax. Ease your gums. Relax, calm down. This is fiction. It's somebody's creative sort of. I think I talked about. Fleming was a 17-year-old. This is hip-hop fantasy. He was a guy, 17-year-old, who wasn't really doing well in school. He got sent to Switzerland and met Adler, who said, "Write your fantasy." He said, "I hang out, après ski, I shag girls, I drive fast cars, and I'm a secret agent." So he's a 17-year-old's fantasies. Everybody's just calm down. It's pure hip-hop, and it's. He needs to learn some manners. I was more of a Harry Palmer fan anyway. Let's be honest. Yeah, the nail in the hand, mate. That's me. I don't need any gadgets. Just give me a nail.
What are you playing at the moment? What have you got? You just mentioned Krypton.
Oh, mate.
That's done well, isn't it?
Yes. Well, what do I play in Krypton? I play General Zod.
Yeah.
So I am the big fallen angel of the Superman dynasty, yeah.
Does that open you up to Comic Con? Have you been to one yet?
I've done a couple in my time. I will do more. Listen, my career is pure Comic Con, really. From Resident Evil to Alien vs Predator to Bond, Doctor Who, Doctor Moon, Mortal Engines, which I did. I mean, it's mad, but I will do more. But it's a fantastic piece, and if you want to get into it, I would suggest Milton's Paradise Lost, but read it and listen to it at the same time, because the language is quite tricky, and it's something I would say to anybody anyway. But when you look at sometimes when I'm slightly dyslexic, so when I hear it and see it, it helps. And I play the fallen angel really.
What is that, Paradise Lost?
Paradise Lost is Milton. So Milton was.
Is that about Adam and Eve?
Yeah.
Because Giles Brandreth talked about. He was on here last week.
Yeah.
Everyone's been on here last week, but
I saw that. Yeah,
Giles Brandreth was on, and he started talking about it, and he said he went to see it at the theatre, and he said they were naked, and he said the most shocking thing was at the end they put their clothes on and became like us. And he goes, that was the bit which was shocking. After you
got used to the nudity was
yeah.
But it's really important because Milton was born around just after Shakespeare, so he was brilliant, and it's one of the greatest poems ever written in the English language, and it's almost Latin in its style. But he was because of Shakespeare, he sort of lived in that shadow, so wouldn't publish it as a play. So you have this thing, but the key to it was his daughters wrote it because he was blind. So the girls wrote it, and he was visited by a muse in the morning, and it was. So you have this female filter. So Eve in it is fantastic. It's better than the Bible. Sorry, folks, but the character's better, and the argument for Satan for taking the apple is so beautifully written.
How are you into all this sort of stuff?
Autodidactic. So I didn't learn it all. My children's education, I got a bit of classical civilization, so I would go and try and help them. I didn't know anything, so I started to read the stuff, and then got more into it than they did. It's like, God, you should fucking Aeneas, man, he's incredible. They're like, yeah, Dad, and on goes the sort of grime. But yeah, so, and the beautiful thing about being an autodidact is when I learn something, I feel it, and then I never forget it. So last year I did the Beckett Festival, for example, Samuel Beckett, up in Enniskillen, where he wrote or went to school. So it was hardcore, and I did I was a reader in residence. Of course, like I said, I'm not trained. I have no tricks, so I have to understand it.
What's that word you're saying?
Autodidact.
What does that mean?
Self-taught.
So you're self-taught on all this stuff.
Yeah.
But do you think the jazz trumpet is the gateway into all this sort of culture?
I just think you'd be curious. I think you're similar. I see you taking notes and writing things down. It's like being a pinball wizard, isn't it? It's like being the pinball. You just get deflected off. You hope to stay in the game. Yeah. The flippers keep you going.
The problem is that it's too easy now. So I end up it's too easy to get all the information, and I can just order that book on Amazon as soon as I finish. It's there. And I'm just filling my life up with all this info. I don't know where to stop. I was having a chat with my friend Pete about this week. Where's the off button for the information?
I say to people now that the world's changed as well, because in the past when we were kids, we had to know the answers. You have to know the answer. Yeah. And I think we're in a period now where it's more important to know the question. What's the question? When you get to meet power, it's ask questions. In the past, we were like, yeah, I know this, that. I love my daughter because they sit there and ask me questions.
Funny you should say that, because I'm trying to do a book from this podcast of all the interesting people like you I've met. Can I use your words, by the way, in my book?
Of course you
can. Good. And that saves me getting release form. And and the all I've done is I've written the opening bit of it, and it says, I don't have any answers. All I have is questions, and the questions lead to more questions. And that's exactly how I feel from doing this podcast. Everyone I meet, like yourself and everybody else, all it does is I get my mind changed a lot, but it's just question after question after question. And I love it. Yeah. I really love it.
Well, it keeps you young. I think that's a curiosity, wasn't it? That was the problem around, I'm not saying my dad necessarily, but that generation of men is like, what do you want to know? What do you need to know? Oh, well, that's a stupid question. go away.
Yeah.
Instead of, I don't know, should we look it up?
Well, I was having this conversation with my daughter last night. Actually, I was saying to her, because she's really into politics at the moment. Brilliant. I was saying, isn't there more difference if you say racism, homophobia, sexism? Isn't the biggest problem the difference between the generations? The older generation, the young generation. I don't know whether it's always been like this, but they just don't seem to be meeting because it's got so removed with the internet and everything else. Yeah. It seems to be a mile apart from each other.
Yeah, and we're not telling them what happened. So what Stephen Lawrence to us is live. But to them, they don't know anything about it. Lawrence Inquiry, all that stuff. Blair Peach, Stonewall. We just did it. We were Anti-Nazi League, Rock Against Racism, Anti-Apartheid Movement. We all went and did it. And that's the thing. We sit there going, well, we've done that. And they're going, done what? You go, that. What's that? Yeah. Oh, this. Well, why'd you do that? Because this. What do you mean you did? So we don't tell them. And that's something that's come up recently with a friend of mine's daughter who's shocked and angry at the fact we didn't tell her. And we just assumed they knew. And of course they didn't. So I put my hand on my heart and go, oops. Right, okay, we need to tell you more about what was going on. Okay, right. Bugger.
Communication is key between the generations, definitely. And when I was watching that farce going on in Parliament yesterday, I was like, Jesus Christ.
Well, one thing I'm loving about it, it's funny you had Giles on last week, because what I loved about him, he was funny. He's funny.
He is,
He's really, really funny. He's a witty man, and he uses his intelligence for wit, and he speaks with that beautiful clipped accent, but he engages you. But what I love is, at the moment, is we've had a certain figure, whose name should remain, who's talking absolute rot, and I think he's not good, but his clipped accent is waning now. It's
Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Did I say that?
Because
that's the thing. It's sort of people listen to that voice, listen, and stop deferring to it. Because he speaks in a slow way and doesn't not get emotional, that doesn't make him right or good.
But I was saying this exactly yesterday to my daughter. We were sitting watching. I was going, his command of the English language, the fact that he's got so much vocabulary at his disposal, he's winning a lot of arguments because he can manipulate a conversation so clearly. And he was being interviewed by Kay Burley yesterday. I was watching it on Sky News, and I was just thinking, this guy's the way he's doing it.
The game,
it's amazing. Yeah.
Because so cage cricket. We take this game, we teach you how to hold, right? So you're in the red zone, blue, green, yellow, white, grey. 6 individuals, you rotate. So you take control of the game. Everybody has to be the referee for one game. Now, when we worked with Oakwood, with the lifer prisoners, they taught us the key to the game was the hold. And we said, what do you mean? So when you make a play, you hit the ball, hits a number, you hold. You go, what was that? 60. What's 60 and 70, John? 130. I'm not very good at maths. Apologies. Put it up on the wall. 5 people. Everybody happy? 5 balls to come. Play. And that way you stay in control. But what happens is you get in the red zone and you don't do that. You start panicking. It's like, what was that? Stop shouting at me. Yeah. You just go, hold. Jacob Rees-Mogg, when I lived with those students in that squad, they argued, right, as a game.
Right.
So where I grew up, an argument ends in a fight. Where they grow up, an argument ends in a thesis. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, that's
and I
brilliant.
get really upset, and they go, well, don't relax, it's fine. we agree to differ, it's fine. So have another beer. And you go, oh, right. And that's why I can't do politics, because I get really emotional.
Yeah, so do I.
And he never gets it.
He doesn't. And when people say, I hate you or boo him, he just takes it.
Well, you go in a meeting. You remember when we did Anti-Nazi League, and we'd be in there, and this guy, and we were John Carlyle in Luton, anti-apartheid movement, and he was up, and he'd be there, and I'd swear, and he'd just pick up his paper and go, I can't work with this, and walk off. So as soon as you lose your temper, they're gone, and you're like, you've got to learn to hold. Because that's the game.
Luton's become quite famous, hasn't it, recently?
Doing it,
because of
it's good to be back.
Because of no, I'm not talking about the football team. I'm talking about Tommy Robinson's. Talks a lot about Luton, doesn't he? Because that's where he grew up, and so he talks a lot about his experiences there. To be honest with you, I haven't all read about it or.
Yeah, but I mean, but what's really interesting is Tommy. Yeah, he's there. Tommy Robinson, there's a few Tommy Robinsons there, but what I've just seen is Newlands Park. I've just seen the fact that they're investing millions of pounds. They're about to bring the river out. they've just got through the planning. So the football side aside, but the 10,000 jobs are going in. So Tommy, he's yesterday's. I just feel there's been a whole period with the knife crime, with Tommy. It's been taken away from what the story is, which is I just feel we've been living through a real interesting time of neoliberalism and the use of media just to create fires everywhere, so everybody's looking there and not looking where the issue is. And I think right now, listen, if you're patriot, and I've worked on building sites and I've worked in all sorts of places. If you're a patriot, pay your taxes. Do not sit in the back of drive a black cab and tell me cash job. Do not work on a building site, put money in it, because we all need the schools to work. We all need the roads to be clear. So don't be flying a flag and then put your money on Jersey, Guernsey or anything else. And I think that's sort of the problem right now. So let's just put it all to the side for all the worries about, and I don't care if you're Bangladeshi, Indian, if English, Irish, if you're taking cash money and you putting it in your pocket, you're stealing from kids and for National Health Service. So if you're a patriot, pay your tax. End of. I mean, that's the price you pay for civilization. Yeah, when I see firms like Amazon and Mac, and I pay my Uber and it's got Luxembourg on it, you go, because it's a dodge.
Yeah, it does annoy me when the people do their tax dodges abroad. But let's not get stuck into that right now. Right, let's ask you the questions that we ask everybody. Otherwise, we'll go on forever.
Oh, yeah.
What one piece of advice would you like to give our listeners that has been invaluable to your life?
One piece of advice I'll give to listeners which has been invaluable to my life, which is, well, I used to say, don't look back, don't look down. But I think, don't be afraid to look back and don't be afraid to look down. I've actually changed my view on that. It's worth it. If you're hitting a wall, stop, reappraise. You may be going down the wrong road. It's okay. We make mistakes. That's probably my advice. We make mistakes.
What's it like being famous?
I get to meet amazing people who tell me amazing things, and you can make people's day, so it's fantastic. If that's what fame is, for me, that's the best thing. You can make people's day. Yeah.
It gives you the keys, doesn't it, really? It gives you the keys. You can meet royal families, presidents, and drug dealers.
Yeah.
Meet who you want.
Yeah.
So in a way, it does.
It does. It gives you sort of a... And I think the thing as an actor as well, it's as an actor being famous, I suppose the bottom line is I don't judge people. I could play them. So they were all born as children, and it's interesting to know how they took that road. That's what interests me. So it's a sort of, I take it slightly spiritual. It's like, how did you get there? How did you do that? What happened? What took you there? Because I didn't train, that's what I do. I sort of work on the backstory.
That's interesting. What's the biggest mistake you've made?
Biggest mistake I've made. Ever touching drugs. Allegedly.
Sure. Well, you say that though. Alcohol's a drug.
Yep. I stopped 5 years ago. Yeah.
If you listen to Neil Woods, he'll talk about the fact that humans, we quite like drugs. It's not, and so do other animals. You know, they look for fermented fruit and everything else. So it's an escapism for us. Our lives are messy and complicated, but
Yeah, I suppose it's probably me, really. I think, like I said, I think I was born intoxicated. I sort of have. I mean, I do have ADHD, so I mean, I'm diagnosed. So I realised a lot of it was self-medicating. It was me. So it's the solution for the solution. That solution created other problems.
Filled a hole, filled a gap.
No, literally, you were literally medicating.
Right.
You were actually, I'm calm down because I'm like, whoa, this is me. I'm 57 years old and I'm bouncing in like a 10-year-old, you know what I mean? Not knocking it.
Are you any good? By the way, are you any good at cricket?
Love cricket, yeah.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Well, you bowl or bat?
Bowl, bat, field, yeah, everything. Yeah, I love it. I bowled Mike Gatting for a Golden Duck, swung it in on him, yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's a great sport, isn't it?
Highlight of my life, Mike. Share that with you.
It just takes a lot of time to watch it.
Well, that's why we created cage cricket, really, because it's only an hour, and it's and I worry the fact that kids on the street aren't playing it, because I think the values of the game that come with it are really key. So the poetry and the people you will meet, it's a real language, and it's in our language. You know, a stiff upper lip, play with a straight bat. They're all cricket terms. You know?
How's it going at the moment? The cage
Very
cricket?
well. Yeah, we've overcome our issues with the powers that be. They've really seen our value, but we've also got support now from. We're working with Navy. We've been working with dementia, because you put a cricket ball in somebody's hand and all of a sudden they're back to childhood. So they get banter and it brings them back in. So it's finding its way, really. You know,
I always say to everyone that you buy a present, there's the four balls, B's, sorry, booze, bouquet, books, or balls. And if it's any age of a man, this is sexist, I'm sorry, but any man of any age, you buy them a ball, and actually it probably work with women as well, but definitely with my mate the other day. He bought a present for his cousin. What'd you get him? He said, I bought him a football because of your 4Bs here. I said, what did he say? He just loved it. He just kept on looking at the ball going, that's amazing, I've got a ball. Balls are great.
Yeah, they take, and absolutely with dementia, it's been proven, because it's like sporting memories, music memories.
Yeah.
It engages you, and you need to keep them busy. So yeah, if you've got a dementia suffering family member, that's a really good gift, because it will take them back to childhood, and they'll start moving a bit. And when they start moving a bit, it starts to help. And then the banter comes, and then the speaking comes. But we're having a lot of breakthroughs. We're down in Portsmouth.
That's brilliant. Okay. By the way, that was very sexy. Balls are for everybody. So can I just say that? Now, can you recommend a book? Oh, no, I haven't done any life hacks. Any life hacks? Maybe travel tip or something
life
like
hacks.
that?
A life hack for me, what would it be? Oh yeah, for me, I always buy sort of not spandex, but sort of easily dryable underwear when I'm travelling, because I can wash my underwear very quickly, so I can take 2 or 3 pairs, rotate.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's really useful. So that means you can carry on more when you're travelling.
All right. Can you recommend a book?
I've just read Mike Fuller's book, Kill the Black One First. Mike Fuller was the policeman I used, or who helped me research Prime Suspect, my first ever job. And meeting him changed my view of the police force. And he joined at 16 and went on to become a commander and assistant commissioner. And it's an extraordinary book. It's only been out a few weeks.
Changed your view of the police force in what way? Positive or negative?
Yeah, definitely positive. I realised there were people in there, because at the time, leading up to that, and it's in the book, you know, we were facing a lot of stuff back in the day, and knowing he was in there made a lot of difference.
Yeah, because Peter Blexley was the first one who came on this podcast and talked about how racist the police were. He was in the police, and he left being a Bobby on the street and went into the drug squad because of it. Neil Wood's book, he talks all about the racism was aimed towards the black youth in London. Yeah. So I don't know if it's
Sus law,
up in Luton, I think, but it was just terrible what used to go on. And you know, and I've always been brought up to believe that the police were the good guys, and when you read it, they are generally the good guys, but you know, there are bad people there, but at that time it was like it was so racist. I found the whole thing quite shocking.
Well, it changed the trajectory of a lot of our lives, you know, because nobody believed us really. We would things would happen, and you get pulled up, and your parents would go, "What you do? Nothing. Don't be silly."
In Neil Wood's book, and Peter Blexley's actually quoted in this bit of it, it's like the riots had to happen. It was horrific the way the black youth were being treated. They were being fitted up constantly.
Well, he's a black policeman, and it's called Kill the Black One First, because he was at the Brixton riots, and they saw him, and he got they targeted him.
Wow.
The black guys targeted him because they saw him as a traitor. But what you will realise, because he was instrumental in Trident, Operation Trident, he's a fantastic policeman, and changed things. He was a very, very influential. He did a degree in sociology.
Christ, what must it have been like for him being in the force then?
Read the book.
So what's it called again?
Kill the Black One First.
I'll have to.
And you must get him in and talk to him.
I've got to. That's just.
And he's extraordinary man and a lovely man.
How hard that must be when you sign up for something which you and then you're just watching. Oh, wow, that must be amazing.
And he talks about it all, and he has a way of being in it. Extraordinary book.
Final question for you. Thanks so much for doing this podcast today, but I'll leave you with what is the meaning of life?
Keep looking for it.
Have you found it?
A bit like my homosexuality. I don't think I've met the right one yet. It changes. I think be in the moment. Be in the moment. Enjoy what you're doing. Be 100% all the time. So I'm talking to you, and I'm driving home, I'll be driving home, and it's stay curious and try and let the memories be short. Forgive, but don't forget. And love your kids.
That's got to be it. Thank you so much for coming in, Con. Really good today.
Pleasure, mate. You got me choked up there.
Finish with a bit of trumpet? Go on.
There's been a lot of talk about the cars we drive, lovers we've known, diamonds and gold. Kiss and tell your business side of life. Well, to be perfectly honest, it's starting to leave me cold. It's time to think about the world we're in. There's bridges down, work to do. The fear I have inside is this gap's become too wide, you see. We've all seen those children on the streets, cotton hoods, ice cold feet, unanswered questions in their eyes. Bad things happen, no surprise. Then we hear about these mothers at home, lots of friends, yet they feel alone. Some dare to judge them without grace when they've never met them face to face. I believe it's time our villages work this out with quiet words and deeds, not blame and shout. Some say it came down from the top. All I know is this madness has to stop. It's not just about the money in the bank. It's more about the fact that people do not say thank you. Or may I? Would you mind? Have you got time? Would you be so kind? In our heart of hearts we know one thing, and that is no child. I repeat, no child, I'll say it again, no child should be left behind.
Yeah, that is so good.
There you go.
Thank you so much. Thank
Pleasure.
you. Cheers.